Hello Internet, welcome to something new. I thought we would take a look and teach you how to make a bug report for Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. This is due to a comment I received from Mama Jamma saying, can you do a tutorial on bug reports? I don't mind doing them, but am a Luddite. So basically bug reports in the game are pretty easy, very straightforward, and there is a guide already on how to do that. But you know me, I'm looking for any opportunity to make a quick and easy video, so I thought we would go over features and bug reports. We will not be covering pull requests. I understand that GitHub is pretty foreign to people who are not coders. I myself am not a coder and had a very difficult time. What was my first pull request? Had a very difficult time when I first started in learning GitHub because it is a very foreign thing. That's right, I made a welding recipe for the jerry can, as per someone's suggestion. Anyway, mostly pull requests are much more complicated, but bug reports issues are much easier to do. So I thought we would make a quick guide. Do I have any open issues that we could use as an example? These are actually not good bug reports for me to use as an example, so let's look at some closed ones. See if we can find, okay, auto dock failure not dealing damage. So I discovered this in testing for a video. I realized that the auto dock, even when it would fail, would not deal damage to the character. So let's use that as our example and set up a new issue as though we were reporting that for the first time. So the first thing you're going to need is a GitHub account. I have one. It's very straightforward. You should probably have a GitHub account if you're interested in contributing in any way to the game, whether that's bug reports, suggestions, or actual work on the game. So you're going to need a profile on GitHub. Second, you're going to need to navigate to the Cataclysm GitHub. I will link this in the description down below, and there is a URL at the top of my screen. Oh yes, before anyone asks, the reason my text is so big is because I like to scale things up for mobile users. And yeah, that's why everything looks so big. So you're going to need a profile, and you're going to need to navigate to the Clever Raven repo, and you're going to come to the page for issues. So if you click on issues, it will bring up a page of the current issues that are listed in the game. Next, there is a button over here that says new issue. You're going to go ahead and click on that, and it will ask us if we're trying to make a bug report or a feature request. I wasn't sure how to explain the difference. Basically, a bug report is something that is wrong with the game and needs to be corrected. So usually what this means is that a system that currently exists in the game is not functioning in the way that it's supposed to. So for example, in our example, the auto dock is supposed to deal you damage when it fails to install a bionic and cause you injury. So that is a bug report. If I had a feature request, let's say, that it was not supposed to deal damage, so the auto dock on failure just said, oh, you failed and no damage was dealt, but I thought, oh, it should deal damage because it failed to complete a surgery, that would be a feature request. Does that make sense? A feature request is an idea that you are suggesting to be entered into the game, and a bug report is an issue with an existing part of the game. Hopefully that makes sense. I struggled a little bit to think about how to differentiate those two things. I also want to point out that feature requests, look, everybody has ideas for things that they want to see in the game. I do, and I don't put in the work to do it a lot of times. It's not really good for the game if everyone shows up and starts making all of their suggestions on the GitHub. Please, before you would make a feature request, please think about what you're suggesting, whether it fits with the guidelines of the game, whether it's something that the dev team would want implemented in the game, whether it's part of the development direction or not. Don't just come here and say, you know what, I kind of wish crafting CBMs was back in the game. Why don't I make that a feature request? You're just going to tick people off because that is the opposite of the direction that the development has moved in. So do please just use a little common sense. Bug reports are much more straightforward and really are welcome. If they're not, if you experience a bug in the game that has not already been reported, the first thing you should do before implementing a new bug report is to check if it already exists. So we would look for auto dock and see if that's something that has already been reported or not. Please do that. But if something is wrong with the game and it has not been reported, you should make a bug report. It will help the project. So you go to bug report and we will click this get started button. we're going to use the previous issue that I made as a template so that we can compare back and forth between the two. So basically, when you open this up, it will display all of this information. It will give you a guide on what you need to do in order to submit a bug report. And what I didn't understand when I first started was that everything between these angled brackets is actually not part of the report. So if I click preview, you'll see that none of that angled bracket text actually makes it into the final result. And anytime that you're confused about what you're typing, go ahead and click preview and you can see a preview of what your post will look like. I generally delete them as I go. I don't know if that's mandated or what, but I'm going to delete them as we go. So step one is to describe the bug. You'll see that's the first heading of our bug report. And it says here that it should be a clear and concise description of what the bug is. So very straightforward, just describe what the issue is that you're experiencing in the game. For my initial issue, I posted when attempting to remove a bad bionic. In this case, it was the Noisemaker CBM, and I'm specifying that because I don't know if it was specific, if it was a bug specific to that CBM or if it was a problem with the system in general. I then posted a screenshot that confirms that it's supposed to deal damage. I had a 94% chance of severe damage to my body parts. However, upon failing, I was not taking damage. So I expressed that here. There was no damage, there was no bleeding, and then I explained, 94% chance of severe damage. I got the 94% I should have taken damage. So just try to explain as clearly as you can and with a fair bit of information, right? Don't be stingy on your information. If you think you understand how something is supposed to work and it's not working that way, it is important that you express yourself in a way that is clear and understandable. That is by far the most important thing. I see issues sometimes where people are like, this thing is broken. It's like, okay, that's not super helpful. That doesn't really tell you anything about the problem. It just says, this is broken, I need you to fix it. So try to be clear. I tend to be a bit verbose. I tend to over-explain things. So I don't know that it needs to be this long, but that is information that needs to be relayed to the people working on it. And if we click preview, let's say we posted this, it will not copy the screenshot, but let's see if we can post this. And we click preview, you'll see it adds that to our previewed text so we can see what we're doing as long as everything is laid out properly. Next, we'll move on to step 2, which is to reproduce. What are the steps to reproduce this? This is basically giving a layout. Some things are very complicated, some things are very basic. So some things might be as simple as try to sleep on the floor, observe that it doesn't count as a comfortable place, and your character never falls asleep, right? So it just depends on what the thing is, but you're going to give a step-by-step explanation of how to make this happen so that the people who go to fix this problem can very quickly identify what is happening and the steps that they need to take in their own game to make it happen. So in the autodoc failure, I specified that you need to attempt to remove a bad bionic, and again I referenced the Noisemaker because I wasn't sure what it was connected to. See what the percentage chance is, and then see that you're not taking damage even when you meet that failure percent. It is important as well, sometimes if you're able to provide a save, that can be helpful. We would do that later in the bug report down here in the additional context section. But if you can provide a save where everything is already set up, so for instance the autodoc, in order to test this you would have to install a bad bionic and then attempt to get it removed. Installing a bad bionic can be complicated, so for like debug reasons it would have been nice if I'd just given them a save that they could load up and observe this behavior. That we'll get to that when we get to additional context. But here I've given these steps required to reproduce the bug I'm complaining about, which is important. Next, we have expected behavior. This is basically why this is a bug. So we're saying, okay, this is broken. What do we think should happen? So the obvious answer for the autodoc situation would be just to say that when it tells you you're going to take damage, it should actually deal you damage. And I'm sure that's what I said. I expected a failure to result in severe damage to my body part as the message suggests. Pretty straightforward. Next, if you have the ability to post screenshots of the issue, you should post them in the screenshots section. You can do this on Windows pretty easily if you just do like the basic screen grab. So like for me, it's Shift Windows S, lets me copy a portion of my screen, and then I just go here and I hit Control V and it will auto upload that image. So that's an easy way to quickly take a picture of something. on your computer, this works for Cataclysm, but obviously use whatever screenshot method you normally would and just post relevant screenshots. I did that here initially. I should have done that down here, but I did post pictures of the message that is displayed as well as the log following that so that we can see that it's not actually damaging my character. It is printing that I failed, but there's no damage being printed in the log. Again, pretty straightforward. Next, for versions and configuration, it's important that you provide this information. A lot of people play on various different versions of the game. Sometimes bugs get fixed. Sometimes people report things in the stable version that are not present anymore in experimental. It's important that you provide your version information. You can do this very easily by going into the game, entering the debug menu, going to info and generate game report. And basically what that will do is copy something to your clipboard that you can then just Control V in this menu and it will print this. And here's an example of what that would look like. It's important that you do this. People play with mods, people play on different versions. Just do it. It takes just a few seconds for you to go in game and get that printed to your clipboard and then paste that in there. I don't think that I did do that. So here's an example of what mine looked like at the time of the issue. Pretty straightforward, not a lot you need to do there. And then in additional context, you should provide any other context that relates to the game, thoughts, things like that, crash logs, debug logs, things like that. It tells you where to find those if it relates to a crash. You can provide a save file here as well, which will help the developers be able to, in fact, it says right here, very important for us that you provide a save file in the case of a crash. It really helps the developers to reproduce the bug and fix it. This is also true in certain things. Because I understand the game a little bit, I will sometimes set up a testing save specifically for the team so that they don't have to go and manually debug everything to set it up themselves. For here, I just mentioned that someone on Discord had told me that there were technical changes relating to the autodock that might have been why this was broken. And then additionally, depending on my version, I was experiencing seg faults, so I mentioned that as well. So it is a very straightforward process, and now that I'm done talking about it, I kind of feel like I shouldn't even have made this video. It's so straightforward. Just follow the guide. If you click the bug report button, it will bring you here and give you a step-by-step guide on how to fill this out. Please, for the love of God, fill it out. Even though this is all very well explained and very well written out, there are people who post that completely ignore this. You know, they ignore all the headings, they just delete everything, and they'll be like, I hate that this doesn't work. And then you get an issue that's like 6 lines, and you're like, why didn't you follow the template? It's so easy. And then just to show you really quickly, features are different. The layout that it offers is different, but it's the same basic principle in that they tell you what they're expecting from you, and all you have to do is fill this out. I think I have a few feature requests that I made. I don't generally make them. If we look for my issue, no, that's the wrong button. If I look for my issues, I'm sure I have at least one feature request in here. Yeah, I have a few. So here, for instance, there was a time when the minimap was disabled during peaking. That really bothered me, so I made a feature request because I thought it would be nice and easy and benefit people like me who really like having the minimap while they peak. Similarly, I complained when crouching was implemented, so that cover information would have an effect on the player's actual vision, which is something that's in the game now. So just for those of you who feel hopeless when you make a feature request, the two that I'm thinking of were already implemented in the game, so it's not that it doesn't get any work done. And yeah, again, kind of feel like this video was pointless, actually, now that I've done it, and probably not explained very well. Basically, your takeaway should be that this is really straightforward, very easy to do. Follow the template that is given to you. If you don't, it's just going to annoy people and make them more likely to delete your request or your complaint. And yeah, very straightforward. Just read, many things about contribution stuff to Cataclysm is just the ability to read and process information. Just read and do what they're asking you to do. Anything that you do to provide a save or every bit of detail that you give is going to benefit them so that they can more quickly and easily take care of bugs. And yeah, and also for the record, not everything gets done immediately. If we go to my issues, the hub mission thing, I posted that June 10th. It's like the end of July. I don't know what, it's July 28th. So For the record, just because you post something, I see this a lot as well. People are like, I complained about a bug 3 days ago and they haven't fixed it. Sometimes stuff takes time. Sometimes things are a much more complicated issue than they might originally appear. That whole crouching to relay information visually to the player, that took months before that was implemented. In fact, I think that was implemented like 4 months ago, and it was like that for a long time. So, like, this is a process. There are people who are working on things, but they have their own agendas. They have their own stuff to work on. Just bear with them. Making an issue or a feature request does not mean it's automatically going to be addressed in the game. And yeah, just keep those things in mind. Follow the template, and you will do just fine. Hopefully, this wasn't too rambly, and hopefully, you learned something. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.